Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Yeah, how about it? President Biden taking on the challenge, calling Trump's bluff. More about that coming up, because today I've got a very special episode of Stand Up. I'm really excited to introduce you to 5 education support professionals who I got to know and speak with when I was in Maryland a couple of weeks ago, giving the keynote address to this amazing group of Maryland education support professionals. It was such a privilege and an honor just to be in their presence, much less to get them fired up and show them how much we support them across the country and the work they do. This is such an important group of people and issue, and really interesting and fascinating, and at times we had some laughs as well. So I think you're going to love it. Thank you so much to longtime listener and subscriber Sean Mckillop, who is lead organizer there, and invited me to come down. I speak with him a little bit about this group as well. That is all coming up. It begins at 36 minutes into today's show. I've got a very long news headlines and sound clips for you, but I think it's worth it. But if you want to jump ahead, it's 36 minutes it starts. And you really don't want to miss it. I'm super proud of this and very excited that I get to share it with you. But right now, I've got to share your headlines. That's what I do here at the opening, all from Earth One. I realize, by the way, Earth One might be confusing to hear. Yesterday, I was on the trail with Dr. Zatz, my BFF here in town, who I hike with every Wednesday. You got to get a Dr. Zatz, by the way. Everybody needs to have a friend that they take walks with on a regular basis. I cannot tell you how much it's improved my life over the past few years. Granted, Zatz is such an enlightened, educated, thoughtful physician and girl dad like me. He's got 2 daughters, one of which is graduating this weekend from Cornell, or is it next weekend? Either way, super smart guy. And I mentioned to him, or he mentioned to me on the trail, I've been meaning to ask you, what is Earth One? Is Earth One, is that like a news service? Is that like the Associated Press? Is that the Wires? What is that Earth One? Of course, it's just a perspective. It's a paradigm. It's where many of us feel like we live. It's a way to name reality. Earth One is the place where we believe in the outcome of the most secure election of our lifetime. We believe that vaccines are a public health miracle, and that the scientific consensus around climate change is that much of it is being caused by our burning of fossil fuels. That's Earth One. I could add to so many other different perspectives, but it's where objective truth, reality matters. At least that's our reality here on Earth One. So it's just a saying. It's just an idea. I'm certainly not the only person who uses it, but just to clear that up for anybody else who might be confused, like the brilliant Dr. Zatz, Earth One, it's our reality, and I'm happy to be here in it with you and constantly reminding you of it and that we're in it together. Tonight, I'll do more of that at our hangout. We'll go through the news, what's happening in our lives. We'll have fun. We'll make fun often of each other, but it's a safe space, a safe place, and I look forward to seeing you at tonight's hangout. Now, let's get to those headlines. I think it's fair to say yesterday the story driving the day was that President Biden came out with a video he posted on social media and everywhere else. You heard it there at the top. I'm sure you've seen it before, where he called the disgraced former president's bluff and said, I'll meet you anywhere to debate. Obviously, there are a lot of preconditions about that. So it is looking like the 2 major party candidates, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, have agreed to debate twice before the November election. The first set to happen on June 27th on CNN, and the second is on September 10th on ABC News. President Biden agreed to the debates on the condition that they bypass the nonpartisan group that has long managed the events, the Commission on Presidential Debates, which I'm fine with. His aides demanded that news outlets host without an audience or third-party candidates, and with microphones shut off after the speaker's time elapses. It remains unclear whether Trump campaign will agree to the proposed rules, but they certainly will advantage Joe Biden. That's the definite reality to me. The June debate would be the earliest general election debate in modern history. Obviously, we'll talk about this at tonight's hangout. Lots of reaction from pundits across the spectrum. One of my favorite reactions was the always cynical and honest and hilarious Frank Conniff, TV's Frank, of course, formerly of the John Fugelsang show. Frank tweeted, "Are there really people who are like, oh dear, I cannot decide between Biden and Trump. Perhaps a presidential debate will inform my decision." What the fuck? The whole endeavor only exists to give pundits bullshit to endlessly prattle on and about. Love that from Frank Conniff. Allison Gill tweets, when Biden refuses the October Fox News debate, which is being proposed, Trump could use that as an excuse to back out of the other two. So it remains to be seen whether it actually happens, obviously. Alex Cole writes, Biden should pull a Trump and invite E. Jean Carroll, Stormy Daniels, and Karen McDougal to sit in the front row of the debates like Trump did with Hillary Clinton. Remember that? When he brought the accusers of Bill Clinton in and sat them right there in the front row? Oof. And Mehdi Hassan tweeted, on the one hand, I'm glad Biden is going after him and calling his bluff. On the other hand, it concerns me that he's maybe legitimizing a man who incited an insurrection. Actually, that wasn't Mehdi Hassan's reaction. That was him quoting Mary Trump's reaction. Forgive me for getting that wrong, listener. And finally, here's one more reaction. The smokescreen is so obvious. Defendant Dunn is terrified to debate Joe Biden because all POTUS has to say to anything Trump says is, well, I wasn't arrested 4 times last year and I don't have to go to court all of this year. Hashtag Biden 2024. Just a few takes on that. More in the sound section of today's news. But of course, the Biden campaign dropped that video and the challenge yesterday when Donald Trump wouldn't be driving today with his trial. But we're back to that today, and so I'm sure that will be the top story. Well, I hope it is, because it means there wasn't some horrific disaster somewhere. Anyway, moving on to another really important story yesterday. Inflation eased. Markets hit new highs. Wait, what? A new inflation report released yesterday offered consumers and policymakers some relief. April prices, with volatile food and fuel prices stripped out, rose 3.6% over the previous year, which is the lowest annual increase in so-called core inflation since early 2021. Am I losing you? Yesterday, my daughter Ava told me a friend of hers is studying economics and started talking about her internship and that she's working on inflation, and Ava immediately stopped paying attention. Hilarious. It's a very boring but very important issue. So yeah, the Consumer Price Index, which is the most watched inflation measurement, am I losing you, put out by the U.S. government, declined slightly on a 12-month basis. And compared with March, prices climbed only 0.3%, with rent and gasoline contributing to 70% of the monthly increase. This is all according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, if you believe them. But it was down from the 0.4 increase seen from February to March. The report showed a slight dip in overall inflation as well, was especially appreciated by economists who had become worried about the lack of progress after 3 straight months of uncomfortably rapid price increases. New York Times economics reporter Ben Castleman said this report was mostly good news, that it wasn't bad news. He said that the stubborn price increases in recent months had begun to erode confidence in the soft landing narrative that had taken hold last year. This report doesn't erase those concerns, but it does at least ease fears that inflation was re-accelerating. And guess what? The news boosted the stock market. Bond yields also fell as investors appeared to dial back how long they expected interest rates to stay elevated. That is all I have to say about that, though. Moving on to another very important story, which is statistical and good in that it's dropped. It's overdose deaths dropping for the first time in 5 years. How about that? U.S. overdose deaths declined in 2023 by about 3% from the year prior, according to federal data released yesterday. Last year's toll, 107,543, still absolutely horrific, but the first drop-off in fatalities since 2018, when the rates were 2/3 of their current height. The decrease was attributable mostly to the drop in deaths from synthetic opioids, but the report did not offer reasons for the drop. One possible factor is that naloxone, a drug that reverses opioid overdoses, has become more widely available. Speaking of Dr. Zatz, he suggests everybody keep that on them, maybe in their car. You can get it free, apparently, at a number of different public service outlets, health service outlets that suggest people carry it. So I thought that was pretty interesting and very important. Speaking of interesting and important, yesterday, the populist Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico, was fighting for his life after he was shot multiple times in an apparent attempted assassination. Prime Minister of Slovakia was shot 5 times by an attacker who had been waiting behind a barrier along with others hoping to greet the leader. The government said that a suspect had been detained and that it appeared to be a politically motivated assassination attempt. Fico underwent hours of emergency surgery, which his deputies said appeared to have gone well. Quote, I guess in the end, he will survive. Fico, who's serving his 3rd term as prime minister, has aligned himself with the Hungarian prime minister Viktor Orban in opposing aid to Ukraine. So those types of political assassinations almost always, I feel like, backfire on the one or the beliefs of the assassin himself, and it's always a guy. Now let's go to Gaza, where the U.S. has begun moving a floating dock system for the delivery of critical humanitarian aid in the waters off the Gaza Strip. Expects the system to be installed over the next 24 hours, according to U.S. officials. Once in place, the officials said delivery of food and other aid could begin in the first 24 to 48 hours after installation. That's good news. That's America doing good work. It's sad that any of it had to happen. Let's go to the Supreme Court. Speaking of sadness, yesterday, well, this isn't sadness. This is actually a good ruling. They said that they were going to allow Louisiana to use a congressional map for the 2024 elections that includes a second district where the majority of voters are black, giving them the opportunity to elect their favored candidate. The justices granted two separate requests, one from a group of black voters and civil rights groups, and the second from the state of Louisiana, to put on hold the decision from the three-judge federal district court panel that blocked Louisiana from using the newly redrawn map in any upcoming election. How about that? A good news decision? A fair decision? I'll have to dig into that. I must be missing something. Didn't get a chance to tonight. And the disgraced current senator from New Jersey is Bob Menendez. Well, his bribery trial opened yesterday. Opening statements in the corruption trial of Senator Robert Menendez, this powerful New Jersey Democrat accused of selling out his public office and his country in pursuit of lucrative bribes. The case has already dealt a near lethal blow to Senator Menendez's 4-decade political career, but a jury of a dozen citizens sworn in early yesterday will now begin formally weighing his fate under intense scrutiny. The fact that he hasn't resigned is killing Democrats. Not good. He's got to go. And let's go to Ukraine, where troops are trying to hold off fierce Russian assaults in the northeast. Their battle position apparently has seriously worsened in recent days. The Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, in Ukraine, doing all he can to get those armaments to them. But is it too late is the question it seems like a lot of analysts are asking. Do want to mention East Texas. We see you. Parts of East Texas apparently are facing a nightmare scenario of rain. They've already been hit hard this week, and it's more rain in some places in Texas that has seen a year's worth of rain since January. Just absolutely horrific. All right, those are the headlines that I've gathered for you on today's episode of Stand Up. Now I want to get to the sound bites that I grabbed from the last 24 hours. Here's a report from CNN yesterday when the announcement of the debate occurred. It gives a little bit more context for you.
Announced that they had sent a letter to the Commission on Presidential Debates informing them that they would not participate in those traditional debates that had been set to begin in mid-September. Instead, the Biden campaign put forth some of the terms that they would like to see for debates going forward, identifying these dates in late June as well as early September for opportunities for the two men to face off one-on-one for the very first time. Now, the Biden campaign has called for these debates to be one-on-one, which essentially is excluding any potential third-party candidates, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They also wanted to see these debates organized directly between the campaigns and the broadcast networks. That is something that we have seen now play out as both Biden and Trump have announced that they are accepting a debate with CNN on June 27th. That debate is set to take place at CNN's Atlanta studios, and it will take place with just the two candidates, the moderator, or potential moderators, I should say, and no audience will be involved. Now, in their letter to the commission on presidential debates, the Biden campaign outlined how they were concerned about getting candidates in front of voters much earlier in the process. Those debates were not set to take place until beginning, I believe, on September 16th. So this will give the two men an opportunity to lay out their viewpoints on various issues far much earlier in the presidential contest than is typical. And also the campaign noted in their letter that some of these debates had turned into entertainment spectacles with outbursts or involvement from audience members. So they're trying to eliminate some of that. Another thing the Biden campaign has called for is for the microphones to only be on when that candidate is actively speaking, potentially eliminating some of that intense back and forth that we saw between Biden and Trump back in 2020. But it's clear at this point that the debate date seems to be set with that first debate between the two men for this election cycle taking place in just 6 weeks.
Very contextual report from the CNN reporter whose name I'm not getting. Forgive me. I will look that up and Send her a fruit basket. I won't. Bill Boyle texted me yesterday on this, said Biden just negotiated debates with no audience and the speaker's mics will be cut off. Literally the worst setup for Trump. And he needs to get Trump in contrast to him sooner than later. An obvious and smart move, and Trump fell for it. Yeah, I think that's pretty good analysis myself. All right, let's move on to more reactions to it. Here's Chuck Todd on MSNBC wondering about RFK. Will he be invited to the debate?
One point about the Kennedy, who's not there. And the interesting aspect of June versus September. So when you read the CNN rules and the criteria carefully, they clearly have a couple of caveats here, because it's possible Kennedy does poll at 15% in 4 polls before the deadline.
But he won't be on enough ballots.
But he might not be on enough ballots to get to 270 electoral votes. So they were very careful that the way the process works, he'll be there by the fall. I'm actually one of those, I'm in the minority on this. I think if you've ever spent a lot of time watching Robert Kennedy Jr. speak, I think if you're Joe Biden, you're going to want him on the debate stage. Yes. I think there will be a point in the fall that they will actually see that as an asset. I'm sort of in the minority on this.
Well, let's just face it.
But I think that
he has a vocal issue.
He does.
It's an ailment.
And I think it will weirdly help Biden look less, any of his issues come across less, because I don't think a lot of people realize this about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I think it'll be interesting. But if he's on, I'm not ruling out the possibility he makes it to the second debate. He's
already gotten on more ballots than they had expected. Michigan, Oklahoma, and several of the others.
Okay, well, that's one concern. Now let's go to the former Speaker of the House, one of the most influential Democrats in the House. Here's Nancy Pelosi's reaction to it yesterday.
I myself would never recommend going on the stage with Donald Trump, but the president has decided that's what he wants to do. I think the format he is suggesting is a good one. I think you all should have separate town hall meetings with them, let them challenge them with questions about the future, and let the public make its decision.
All right, there's Nancy Pelosi talking to CNN reporter, and let's go to now one of the spokesmen for the Biden campaign, another guy whose name is escaping me, but this is what he had to say in support, obviously, of his boss, the president.
Yeah, there's still some details that we have to work out. There's no doubt about that. But I think the top line here is that we want one-on-one debates between Joe Biden and Donald Trump on the issues free of distraction, right? And so that's what we are advocating for. Insofar as moderators, we want to make sure that the networks themselves are choosing from amongst their normal roster candidate of talent pool, so that there's no question over who is in control here. We want to make sure that we have a conversation that is structured and on the issues that the American people care about. We want to talk about abortion. We want to talk about the economy. We want to talk about our fundamental rights and freedoms. We want to talk about the threat that Donald Trump poses to our democracy, and make sure that the American people can actually hear the full-throated arguments between the two candidates, because we are confident in the Joe Biden campaign that when they hear the candidates talk about the issues of freedom, issues of democracy, who is fighting for you on the economy, they're going to side with Joe Biden. Not quite sure Donald Trump and his team feel the exact same way. I guess we'll have to wait and see what they actually say.
And now let's go to a take from Earth 2. Who's better to listen to than the disgraced former president's daughter-in-law of Eric? Here's Laura on the Trump Network, Newsmax.
Yeah, he called his bluff. I think you're exactly right, Rob. They thought that there was a chance that Donald Trump was going to say, okay, well, here's all of the things that I need if we're going to do this. Because Joe Biden obviously has given himself every possible advantage here. They have no audience for these debates because we know, Rob, that any audience is going to be cheering on Donald Trump anywhere. And yeah, he called his.
There she goes, Lara Trump. And she also said, of course, it's rigged. That's right.
It's rigged so heavily in Joe Biden's favor, but everything always is.
And let's stay on Earth 2, where Fox News' outnumbered co-host Dagan McDowell claimed that President Joe Biden's offer to debate Donald Trump is actually a ploy to actually avoid President Trump, the disgraced former guy.
Right. This is why. So I'm going to pull on my deplorable hayseed hick hillbilly overalls. Because this feels to me like a ploy by Biden and company to avoid actually debating. So you eliminate the commission. You negotiate directly with President Trump's people. So how's that going to go? Biden and company will throw sand in the gears and claim that Trump and his team won't make a deal by making all of these demands and then some, because there's not going to be any objective third party to come out and tell the truth about what the real demands are. So they will make demands potentially potentially, and then Biden will maybe tank this on purpose. I don't think these debates happen by design. That is just what my gut says. And by the way, not only did President Biden, by saying, I hear you're free on Wednesdays, the American people already know that this is a political prosecution. So that's a terrible look. But they also edited that video 5 times. So he wants to be like TikTok, but also it raises the question, can you not get through 13 seconds without 5 edits?
Yeah. You know, RFK Jr., if he gets to 15%, what are they going to say to him?
All right, well, we're done with them, but you got to see that woman's face at the end when she thought she made a whole bunch of brilliant points. And let's do one more reaction to it. This is Chris Wallace on CNN, and he actually hosted a debate once. He said he's glad the debates between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump will not have audiences. Yeah, that's right. He moderated the infamous first debate between Biden and Trump in 2020, and here he is.
There are 3 simple changes I tell all of my arthritis patients to make. Number 1, you have to start drinking more water.
So there's also this issue of the studio audience or lack thereof. It would be the first time since 1960 that there hasn't been a studio audience in a presidential debate. I mean, personally, I think at this point it's smart, perhaps, to take it out of the context of sort of public opinion and the kinds of party operatives. What do you think about that?
I do, too. I always felt that the audience was a pain in the neck. You know, some people are saying, well, that's going to hurt Trump because he plays to a crowd. I can tell you, as somebody who's been on that general election debate stage twice in 2016 and 2020, people aren't playing to the crowd. It is a very intense circle there between the 2 candidates whose podiums are just 10 feet apart and the moderator who's about 10 or 15 feet away from the 2 of them. Nobody is playing to the crowd. Now, the crowd does get involved occasionally, and the moderator has to play schoolmarm and turn around and say, be quiet. But I think it's overstated the advantage that it gives either one of them. I don't think either of them are really paying much attention to it, and I think it removes an unnecessary distraction by just saying, you know, as in 60, which it was just done on a TV stage with the 2 candidates, a host, and a bunch of reporters asking questions. I think it's a very much a positive for the audience, for the millions of people at home who are watching, and that, of course, is the real audience and the real point of the whole debate, so voters can do some comparison shopping.
Yeah, and
All right, there you go. Chris Wallace on CNN with his take. And now let's go to a completely different subject. I always like to play these clips from congressional hearings. You guys have given me a lot of feedback saying that you really like these. So let's head to one of our favorites who's joined me here on Stand Up at least twice. It's Jasmine Crockett yesterday detailing the horrors of Project 2025, which one of the Republican witnesses is involved with. And you know this asshole wouldn't have been nearly as smug if it was a white guy talking to him. I mean, you just get that feeling, but here it is.
Let's see, you're the executive director for the America First Legal, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And America First Legal is a member of Project 2025, which is dedicated to creating the playbook for the next conservative administration and what it calls the Project Pillars, correct?
We are proud contributors to Project 2025.
Okay. And are you familiar with Project 2025's mandate for leadership?
In fact, I am.
Okay. And in fact, you wrote some of the sections of this mandate related to the DOJ, correct?
Sure did.
And the mandate outlines policy priorities for the next conservative president. Is that correct?
It does.
You've done a great job. I just want to let you know. All right, so let's walk through some of the provisions of the mandate. It calls for eliminating the Department of Education, eliminating the Department of Commerce, deploying the military for the use of domestic law enforcement against protesters under the Insurrection Act of 1807. It also has the repealing of Schedule F status for thousands of federal employees to allow a president to replace career civil servants with unqualified partisan loyalists. That's probably my favorite of it. It also prohibits the FBI from combating the spread of misinformation and disinformation, like Russia and China, who are actively trying to interfere with American elections. I don't know why or how anybody can support Project 2025. And I know that there was allegedly a joke about dictators and whether or not that's funny, but in the United States of America, dictatorships are never funny, and Project 2025 is giving the playbook for authoritarianism as well as the next dictator to come in. And I know that you are doing your jobs here by making sure that hopefully some juror turns on and finds some viral moment of you spewing more of the nonsense as it relates to the president, but as...
All right, well, that's some of what Congressman Jasmine Crockett had to say, one of the architects of Project 2025. Worth digging into that hearing yesterday. Well, let's stay with another Democratic congressman. This is Eric Swalwell on CNN yesterday. He was criticizing all of those Republicans who went up to Manhattan to do what Trump couldn't, which is complain about the judge and all of the things that Trump is gagged cannot say. Here's Eric Swalwell yesterday talking about that.
Congressman, a lot of Democrats, I believe yourself included, voted to help Mike Johnson keep his job as Speaker. Any regrets there? I mean, he goes up to New York and throws his support behind the former president when he's on trial. What do you think?
Yeah. We voted for Mike Johnson to keep his job as Speaker, not for him to lead a law firm of Johnson, Mills, Donalds, and Bergman. And again, I thought I served with busy people who had important things that they were working on for their constituents, not people who were so desperate to be Donald Trump's lawyer that they would put aside their duties to their constituents, go up to New York, and sit in a courtroom like somebody who has nothing to do. That to me, frankly, is pathetic, and it's missing the point of what people sent us here to do.
And do you think if Democrats have another crack at this to save Mike Johnson's job, that the vote will end up the same way?
I think it's always going to come down to what's best for the American people and what helps us get things done here. So that vote reflected we have things to do still. We have to reauthorize the FAA so airports and airplanes are safe and functioning. We've got a budget to pass in September so the government doesn't shut down. And there's going to be a crisis that we haven't even anticipated or predicted yet that always will pop up. So we need order here, and as long as the Republicans are in the majority, we will provide the majority of the votes, but we're not going to let chaos prevail.
All right. Well, there is Eric Swalwell yesterday on the Speaker of the House leading a law firm of Johnson, Mills, Donalds, and Bergman. I like that line. Democrat Dan Goldman was also on CNN yesterday talking about Speaker Johnson prostrating himself in front of Donald Trump when he went to New York.
A number of Trump allies have been over at that courthouse, including House Speaker Mike Johnson. He stood outside of the courthouse and basically parroted all of Trump's talking points about the trial. I mean, what does it say to you that the Speaker came all the way to New York City to publicly defend this president?
I mean, other than the fact that it is pathetic that he has to prostrate himself in front of Donald Trump by going to New York and spewing his lies, it is just a further attack on the rule of law. And it is completely inappropriate for a member of Congress to try to interfere in an ongoing criminal prosecution. You will note there have been no Democrats there. We Democrats want the rule of law to play itself out. We want the criminal process to work, and that is in a courtroom with a jury of 12 who must unanimously convict any defendant, including the former president of the United States. And this is just a constant refrain that we've seen from this Republican majority, which is that the rule of law does not apply to Donald Trump. It does not apply to them. It is hypocrisy at its height, and it is truly an attack on our democracy and the rule of law. They should stay in Congress, they should do the work for the American people, and they should let the criminal justice system play itself out. That is what our democracy requires. That is what the rule of law requires. And it's shameful and demeaning for them to go and pay homage to Donald Trump outside of the courtroom.
And of course, putting the business of the American people on hold while they take their trips up to New York to visit with Trump.
All right. And how about this? Congressman James McGovern on the House floor yesterday.
It's probably not the best idea to take direction on law and order from from a guy who, as we speak, is a defendant for covering up hush money payments to a porn star for political gain. That's not even to mention the other 3 criminal felony prosecutions that he's facing. And look at the cover of today's New York Times, Mr. Speaker. This is unbelievable. Here's a picture of the Speaker of this House of Representatives, second in line to the presidency, standing in front of a courthouse acting as a prop for Donald Trump, trying to interfere with a criminal trial because apparently Republicans like law and order unless it applies to them. Unbelievable. You can't make this stuff up. And this stunt, I'll say to my colleagues, this stunt of the Speaker and members of the Republican members of Congress going to this courthouse, this stunt diminishes this House of Representatives. Their candidate for president has been indicted more times than he's been elected.
The chair would remind us to refrain from engaging in personalities towards presumptive nominees for the office of president.
I didn't think I was. And somehow, Madam Speaker, they have the nerve to tell us about the criminal justice system. Give me a break. Their credibility on this issue has evaporated. It is pathetic.
Oh, I love Jim McGovern. Love that guy. I was once hanging out in his office after interviewing him with his wife, and she was real cool, and I've interviewed him a lot of times. I keep forgetting to reach out to his office to get him back on, but I promise you I will, because he's only gotten stronger and better as he is served in Congress. And now let me bring you to Mike Johnson. Yesterday he had a press conference. A reporter asked a really smart and important question to him. I'm not sure who this was, but it was real good, and this reporter should be given a lot of credit for asking Mike Johnson.
We've heard a lot this week.
I don't think you can really hear it, but he said, we've heard a lot about Democrats defunding the police. The Republican Study Committee budget cuts the main federal grant program that local departments use to hire officers. How is that not defunding the police?
How is that not proposing to defund the police?
I haven't looked into the details of the RSC budget. There's lots of nuances. They also plus up other areas where you support law enforcement, because that's a central theme of what we believe. It's part of our worldview. It's part of our party platform, and it will always be consistent. A lot of the Democrats in the House now are trying to revise history and pretend as though, and even say that they never supported defund police. But I served on House Judiciary, and I have some pretty famous vignettes, viral videos, where I went through and literally took all the time reading all of their quotes. I mean, it's top Democrats in the House who, just a few years back, were all on board with defunding the police.
Of course that's not true. Of course that's not true. I cannot let it to go on. All right, well, that's all I've got for you in sound, other than a little bit of comedy. How about it? Let's listen to Jon Stewart on The Daily Show this Monday with a scathing and hilarious commentary on Democratic Senator Robert Menendez, whose trial I mentioned started today.
Senator Menendez is accused of using his access and influence as a senator to illegally help a variety of shady governments and clients. But what evidence do we really have?
Federal agents searched the Menendez home in June 2022, finding over $480,000 in cash.
2 bags filled with $100,000 each.
$100,000 worth of gold bars. Payments toward a mortgage.
The Mercedes-Benz convertible.
Furniture, exercise equipment, even an air purifier.
4 boots stuffed with cash.
Cash even found in the senator's embroidered congressional jacket.
Sacrilege! Cash in the lining of a congressional jacket, which, oddly enough, is reversible.
Mocked up picture of Menendez wearing a jacket with dollar signs all over it.
But the money is in his house, and his jacket, and his boots, and his lining, and his pockets. But none of it ties the money to Menendez or Egypt.
The indictment says upon returning from one trip to Egypt, Menendez performed a web search for how much is 1 kilo of gold worth.
Damn you, metric system! I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for your meddling kids and your base 10 system of measurements and weights. lot of reasonable, benign explanations for why a senator's house would be stuffed with cash and gold bars, home heating insulation, perhaps, or something stupider.
According to the New York Times, his lawyers now offering a new explanation as to why he had thousands of dollars in gold and in cash in his home. They say that the habit is rooted in traumatic family history.
These are simply my emotional support gold bars. Whenever I am not with them, I get anxious. People respond to trauma in different ways.
All right, folks, those are your headlines and your sound bites. 36 minutes worth? Too much? Overkill? I get a lot of feedback that people like these longer, robust, comprehensive segments because you get a lot of different information. But I am now getting to the original content. What I am most proud of that I do each and every day on the show is interviewing smart people about important issues, impactful work that they're doing, like Maryland Educators Organization. And we're very happy and lucky that we have a longtime listener named Sean Mckillop, who is the organizing specialist for what's called Education Support Professionals, which I wasn't even realized that they were an organized group. I was so happy to see this. And Sean, is a longtime listener, invited me to come down to their conference 2 weekends ago, and I was so honored. And I talked about it at the time, obviously, and I caught up with Sean to talk a little bit more about the organization and his work. And then I interviewed 5 of these, what I'll call everyday heroes, these education support professionals that are underpaid, overworked, unseen, and often doing thankless jobs. Of course, my mom was a public school teacher. Special education was her specialty. I'm an advocate for public schools and teachers and educators most of my career and my life, and I was really happy and really proud to do this. So here we go. Let's first talk with Sean Mckillop, and then I've got 5 amazing guests, all of which are fascinating, and I'm really happy to share this. I was really happy to meet them. Check out marylandeducators.org, and the show notes for today's episode has all the links to them and their work and some pictures of us all together in the subscriber email. Let's do it right now, starting with longtime listener and a real cool guy who's doing amazing and impactful work. This is Sean Mckillop telling us all about it. Sean, thank you so much for talking to me and for previewing what we're about to hear from these amazing education support professionals. So glad to have you.
It's good to be here, Pete.
Obviously, it was great to be with you and with this amazing group a few weeks ago. And I want to talk a little bit about what you're doing with Maryland State Educators, specifically the education support professional. Who are these folks and why are we organizing for them?
Yeah, so our organization is the Maryland State Education Association. We are the state affiliate of the National Education Association. We represent 75,000 members across the state in public schools, but 12,000 of them are, as you say, what we call ESP, which stand for Education Support Professionals. And that's your bus drivers, that's your public school clerical staff, that's your paraprofessional, also known as classroom assistants. They are your food service employees. They are your custodians and your maintenance. And as we talk, we're a week removed from Teacher Appreciation Week. But these folks are the unrecognized heroes of our schools, and they're not being appreciated the way that they should be. And I always talk about my daughter's bus driver, and I just came from an event where she was recognized at our school board meeting, where I had to nominate her for an award that she won. But when you think about what a school bus driver does, for example, they don't just drive a bus, right? Their job is to keep students safe every day. And statistically, it's safer to put a student, your child, on a school bus than to drive them yourself as a parent, than having them ride a bike or walk to school. Definitely safer than driving themselves to school. It is the safest way to get kids to school every single day. And it's a job that I couldn't personally do, but she's so important to our family. And I really believe that she should be getting all of the pay and respect that she's earned for this work. And, and just a statistic here in Maryland, and this is true all over the state, according to MIT, the living wage for a single person in Maryland is $51,000 a year. But according to all our data, 40% of these school support staff make less than $25,000 a year. So they're almost half of folks aren't even making half of what they do or need to be living on their own. And so what we've been doing in Maryland the last couple of years is we've put together this ESP Bill of Rights campaign where we're organizing and negotiating and advocating for all of these things: living wage, respect, benefits, and the things that not all of these folks are receiving. So
living wage, retirement, affordable health care, paid leaves, safe and healthy work environment, job security, career advancement, fighting against the threats of privatization, and, of course, the right to a union. I'm just reading from your Bill of Rights at marylandeducators.org. And, you know, sorry to interrupt you, but just a few more of those things that they're so vital to anybody, to any working person.
Yeah, and these school educators are oftentimes working with our most neediest students, right? A lot of our ESPs work in special education, so they're working with students, teaching them how to read, but they're doing things like lifting them in and out of wheelchairs, helping them get them in and off the bus every day. Their work is so critical and so overlooked. And, you know, again, we all love our teachers. We love our principals. We love all these folks that are part of the education village that it takes to educate our children. But these folks, they're the first to arrive in the morning, to unlock the school, and they're the ones that leave at night when they're, the last ones to leave at the end of the day, where they're cleaning the schools and preparing it for the next day, right? And so we can't overlook these folks because our communities and our students really depend on them. And so this is the work that I do in Maryland with our organization, is organizing them, getting these folks to stand up and be their voice and talk about all the important work they do. And I think that's something that's really critical in our communities. But that's the whole point of our campaign, as you mentioned, our ESP Bill of Rights campaign, which the Bill of Rights you're describing was written by support staff for support staff, right? It's not something that a few people did. We reached out to over 1,000 different support staff across the state of Maryland to help us write that document. And so that's our driving force about what we're organizing and advocating for here in Maryland.
One of the women who you're about to hear from, folks are about to hear from, and several of them, and I don't want to, how do I say this without generalizing? Some of these students are violent. Some of these students have real behavioral issues, and they become violent. And one of the women I talked to suffered a traumatic brain injury. They've been bitten, they've been punched, kicked, spit on, and it's sometimes regular. But they were proud to do the work. They are proud to do the work. And they don't blame the students. They don't take it personally. They show up day in and day out unless they're too injured to work, which was the case with one of these women. So when I think about someone that works with my son or daughter, works with somebody else's, and often one-on-one, and often throughout a number of years stays with that student and is injured, and at some point helps that child see more, be better, and not have those behavioral issues, and yet that person is not receiving a living wage. It is disgusting, and it's what fueled me when I spoke with all of your members.
Right. There is so much trauma that our students have gone through since COVID that we haven't even fully begun to understand yet. But these are the folks that are working with them every day. And some of them, that's their job. That's their job, to be the person on the front lines with those students that I described earlier that need a lot of support. And you're right. They have not only to do that job, when they leave school at the end of the day, they're working a second job and sometimes a third job. And that's one of our campaign slogans. Our mantras is one job should be enough for public school support staff. Right? The work they do is so critical. They shouldn't have to be working 2 or 3 jobs. They shouldn't have. One of our support staff members is a bartender till 2 a.m, and then she has to get up at 5 a.m. She gets a couple hours of sleep and then goes to school to do a job because she has to be there at 7:30 in with those kids. She should be getting a full night's sleep. She should have one job that's able to provide for her and her family. Shouldn't have to work 2 or 3 jobs.
Yeah.
But that's the reality a lot of these people face. But they do it because they care so much about those kids, right? And you can't. And they're obviously very talented and motivated and hardworking folks, but they understand the kids need them, and they're going to do what they can to make to make it work for their lives, but we can do better. We can do better for them.
Yeah.
So one job can be enough for them, so they can focus on those kids.
The reason why I wanted to share their stories here on the podcast is because you probably don't live in Maryland if you're listening to this. But if you did, you can support these folks. But you definitely have education support professionals, paraprofessionals in your district, in your schools. These people so often go unseen. And so the reason I wanted to do this today was to make sure that folks listening knew that these folks are working. They're underappreciated. They're underpaid. They're in tough situations. And the least you could do is recognize them. And this is something we can all do right now, today. We talk about big issues here. This is a big issue. And this is something that if your kid's in school or if you're just live in a district, you can do something. You can say something. You can advocate for these folks. You can vote for politicians who will support them, etc. So there's a lot we can all do. And so I thank you so much for joining me to talk about it, for inviting me down there. It really was a huge privilege and an honor. And I came away feeling really enlightened after talking to these folks, which we're about to hear from. Thank you so much for having me and for talking to me and here at the beginning before we hear from. Anything else you want to say, Sean?
No, we loved having you. And again, we have ESPs that are struggling. We have budget cuts, and some of our folks are facing layoffs this year. So you came down and really not only made folks laugh and brought so much energy, but you really inspired folks, Pete. So I just want to thank you for coming. Again, we're going to have you back in Maryland, but it was really great having you with our folks, and everyone wanted to thank you for coming down to our conference. So
I'm very, very, very grateful. All right, Sean, thanks so much for talking to me.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Now let's get to some of the amazing education support professionals that I spoke to, and I hope that you enjoy each one of these folks who all had some very original thoughts to share. I learned so much. I'm so enlightened and inspired, and each one of them, in my mind, is really impressive and said such important comments on their careers and their challenges. And I hope that you'll listen all the way to the end, because our last guest is super powerful, as are the rest. So here we go. I'm very excited to have now joining me from Calvert County Public Schools. She's been the Central Office Human Resources, co-chair of Maryland Education Support Professionals, the president of local Calvert County Support Staff Union, and a member of NEA's leadership training cadre. And I've been talking to her, and she's really smart, really cool. Stacey Taman, hi, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
What are we doing here? What are we doing here at this conference? What are we trying to fix and solve?
So the overwhelming theme of the conference is our MSEA ESP Bill of Rights. This Bill of Rights came to be simply through a conversation as the ESP organizing committee first started working together. And as we worked together or to collaborate on different problems in our different locals, we realized we were all facing the same things. And so why would we be doing individual fights across the state when we could band together and do a collective fight? And there, the ESP Bill of Rights was born. We did listening sessions around the state before we wrote the Bill of Rights, and we talked to hundreds and hundreds of ESPs, asking them what the most important issues were to them. So when this Bill of Rights was written, it is really written in the voice of ESPs from across the state. And so we have done the initial campaign. We're moving into a second phase of the campaign where we're helping locals structure contract language so that they can implement through contract language some of the Bill of Rights that we believe everyone deserves.
And that Bill of Rights is really important to the mission, obviously, and well stated, and everybody here is pretty familiar with it, but started sharing and organizing. Tell me some of the problems, list some of the problems. I'm sure there is a litany. I'm sure they are nuanced, but just tell me some.
We were hearing from the members across the state.
Similar problems that you're hearing. Yeah, what?
Most ESPs, the majority of ESPs, work multiple jobs. One job is not enough to sustain a living or to support a family.
Right.
And that in and of itself is problematic. We need our employees to be 100% showing up for students every single day. But because the wages are so systemically low, they're working multiple jobs, which means they are not at 100% capacity.
Some people might think that they are working part-time hours. What is the difference between the amount of work and the type of work? I would argue that people should, if you're working 3 hours in a public school, in special ed, or any of the other most challenging jobs, those people should get paid what others are getting paid for 10 hours because the work is so hard, the burnout rate is so high. And if you don't pay people well, much better than I do, they're not staying in this job, maybe in this profession in education. So what do you say to somebody who says they're only working just so many hours? It's a part-time job. Get part-time pay and benefits. What would you say to that person? Be nice to that person. That person's name is Carl. Let's call him Carl.
We'll call him Carl. So Carl and I would have to have a very big conversation. Some work part-time hours, but the majority of your education support professionals work full-time hours. Yeah. The majority work school-based months. So there are 2 months in the summer where they're not actively in front of students. However, it is still a full-time position. The hourly wages have just recently hit $15 an hour because in the state of Maryland, that's minimum wage. But these are minimum wage dollars that we're paying individuals who are working one-on-one with students and helping to structure their futures. We're not babysitters. These are individuals who
You say that because people call you glorified babysitters all the time, or babysitters.
All the time. Absolutely.
Just to be clear, that's what you're reacting to.
Yes, that is what I meant. During the pandemic, people were worried schools were closed because they didn't have childcare. So where are we going to send those kids if the schools are closed? Our education support professionals are highly trained and highly skilled individuals who meet students right where they are. And this is nothing, I take nothing against our certificated staff. They are teaching a group of students. But it is our paraprofessionals that go in and provide very structured, individualized support for these individuals.
As one of the problems is the work is really hard and the pay is low, and in any job, but especially this one, it will lead to a churn rate, meaning you could have somebody who's really good at the job, who everybody likes, who the kids most importantly like, leave because they can't, as we started, sustain a life, support their family. So is that a big issue, people leaving?
Yes, without a doubt. There's always high turnover.
Right.
Another issue that has been exacerbated since the pandemic is student behavior. Students return to the schools with some maladaptive behaviors, lack of communication skills. And we have a lot of staff who are hit, kicked, spit on, they're bit, they destroy classrooms. It's a method of communication, but it's also people suffering injuries as a result of their employment.
I can imagine anybody saying, this isn't worth it. I didn't sign up to be injured on this job. I want to work with kids. I want to educate kids. I want to make a difference, but I just got bit.
Correct.
Yeah. That's tough.
It is.
Tell me a story about either an ESP, someone that you know, or in your own experience in a building that I think either illustrates the issue or celebrates the work.
Oh, illustrates the issue. We had an instructional assistant.
Yep.
In a local elementary school, had been there for 18 years. Stellar evaluations. She was involuntarily moved to a high-intensity program. She asked not to. She didn't feel like she was qualified or skilled. She was provided no training. Within the first week of school, she was written up for violating certain protocols that she had not been trained on. She has been injured and denied workers' compensation because they are doubting that the injury occurred in the classroom. She was then put on a 30-day plan, which is you can't have a bad evaluation unless you've had a conversation 30 days in advance. And they listed all of these things that she has been doing wrong. This is an 18-year veteran of the school system, highly respected in the school, involuntarily transferred, not trained, injured, and she's being written up. And we think people are going to stay.
That is, when we talk about respect, that is what we're talking about.
That absolutely.
Anything else that you want to tell me, a story or a celebration or triumph? I guess one important question is, you told me before we started recording that you came to the union not too long ago, even though you've been working in the district for a long time. What is the importance of organizing together this weekend and in general?
Your voice goes from being one to hundreds.
Right.
And when you have hundreds of voices standing behind the same issue, you are going to affect change. You are going to bring awareness to an issue. And we are finding, ESPs in general across the state, that the more we speak together, the more we are opening eyes. I'm currently in negotiations. And even through negotiations, I am watching these aha moments with the administration from our county because they didn't know this was going on. They didn't know these things were actually happening. So it is vitally important. Numbers are power, and the louder our voices are, the less they're able to continue to silence us. One example that I wanted to share about what it's like to be an ESP or how you are viewed as an ESP. We used to have language in our contract, our negotiated agreement, that said that education support professionals could be used to search for bombs in buildings. The rationale of the district was that nobody knows the building better than our building service workers or our building service managers, and therefore they would know all the hiding places where a bomb could be. We had to fight to get that language out of our contract. But when they went to build a new middle school and they had the project team, they had a teacher on the project team for the construction and design of the building. But our building service managers, who know the functions of the buildings the best, were not a part of that committee. They saw no value of their input. And that truly sums up how we are treated in the workplace.
Well, now that teacher can find the bomb. He helped build it.
We got that language out of there.
Yeah, good job. That's a great triumph, and that's a really important story to illustrate exactly what we're talking about. You are a hero. I appreciate you talking to me and your work, and I think that you should really enjoy your hair. I can't look. You have beautiful hair and glasses, Stacey. I think you know that already.
I spend money on
it. I know you have to go do a shampoo commercial, so I will let you go. Thank you so much for talking to me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Okay, now joining me from the Carroll County Public Schools here in Maryland. She is a special education paraprofessional at Robert Moton Elementary School, co-chair of the Maryland Education Support Professionals Committee, and the president of her local Carroll County Support Staff Union. Cindy Porter, what an honor to be talking to someone of your experience and stature, and I really mean that. I appreciate the work that you've done, even though I'm not from here. I can understand.
Thank you, Pete. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Tell me about your career. Why did you choose to get into education, much less special education?
This is my 25th year.
Wow.
In education. And initially I wanted to become a teacher in my early years. And I was married with some children, and the family plan was that when my daughter went into kindergarten, I was going to go to college to get my college degree because I was in the military after high school. And so job loss necessitated me getting a job before I could go to college. And so I said, if I can't teach, maybe I can work in the school in another capacity. So I sought out a job as a special education assistant in a school. It was a 6/10 position at an elementary school in our county. And they gave me enough extra hourly hours to basically make a full-time position. That was the first year. The second year after that, I got what they call a full-time contract. And I have been doing this ever since in different schools and in different capacities.
My mom did special ed, and I have a lot of friends who do. And my question is always, why? Why not just ed? Special ed seems harder. It seems more challenging. It seems more frustrating to work with that population. Why did you choose that?
Everything you said about it is correct.
Right. So my assumptions are right, but like a lot of people might not choose that. I wouldn't. That sounds really hard.
People tell me all the time that it takes a special person, and I've never thought of that in that capacity. I've just always been drawn to kids, and I love children and love helping them learn. And I learn as much with them along the way. And it's those kids who have those difficult learning abilities that need the extra help and need somebody to help them navigate the world in their education.
Given your career, you've seen a lot of what happens in Maryland schools and teachers and general educators, people that work in these buildings, have seen a lot. You've said you've been there 25 years. Why is it important for you to organize the way you are as education support professionals? Like, what is the issue that requires you to organize, to be together at this conference this weekend?
There are
issues. So forgive me. I know there's a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But pick
there
whatever
are
you
many
want.
Issues. I was one of those people who came in and thought I was covered by contracts and I would be fine and everything else. 10 years ago, I came into an elementary school where I currently serve, and I came into a specialized program. And with the most severe emotionally behaviorally challenged elementary students in our county. And those challenges were unlike anything I had ever seen. And absolutely, our careers have changed as I've gone through my 25 years. And the expectations for us have changed dramatically.
From who? The people above you, the public?
All of it, actually, and also because of the needs of the students.
They become higher, different?
More intense.
More intense behavioral issues, more intense.
Disabilities have become more varied and more recognized as we have gotten better with technology and understanding and diagnosing. But also there are so many factors, including the pandemic, that have exacerbated behaviors and other things like that. And this specialized program dealt with these students. And cameras were coming into our classrooms, and our principal told us that they were going to be for our protection. And that raised my red flag a little bit because of knowing about the intensity of the student behaviors and how they were increasing and not decreasing as we all wish they would. So that started my advocacy and my interest in protecting my rights. And then I became interested because as a career education professional and as a support professional, I'm in my 25th year. And as a 25th year educator, I am unable to support myself with what I make. And I have led professional development on the local level. I have been a trainer at the national level. I hold the president's position in my local union, and I am also involved at the state level. And I think that is a shame. I used to be ashamed.
Really?
I used to be ashamed of what I made, and I didn't say anything to anybody. And one of the most freeing things that I ever did was testifying in front of the state legislature for an issue that we were trying to raise to gain a better understanding of education support professionals and their wages across the state of Maryland.
Oh, I wish I had the audio of that right now. I'd play it, but do you want to tell me a little bit about your testimony or what you said that was so liberating that day?
Basically, the same thing I said a few minutes ago, that as a career educator and as an older career educator, that I am unable to support myself as a single woman or a single person. It doesn't matter whether you are a woman, man in this job, whatever.
Right.
The wages for education support professionals across our state and across our nation are not reflective of what we do every day and the challenges that we face every day.
Talk to me specifically about any of the challenges, an anecdote, a story from your career recently or whenever.
It's been very interesting since that time that I testified, because I've had students who think that I make more money than what I do. Right. I have students who call me their teacher, and I am in their classrooms with them. We develop relationships with them, but we also, the increase in student behaviors have created problems. We have, in my bargaining unit from the beginning of this year, I have a student support assistant who had 2 concussions within 3 weeks. And that's not uncommon. 2 within 3 weeks is uncommon. But we have staff members getting hurt on the daily. And it's indicative. Kids are communicating no matter what they're doing. Behaviors are a method of communication. And there are so many underlying issues, and the expectations for students, let alone staff, they walk through our doors every day, and the baggage that they walk through our doors with, they're supposed to put aside, and we're supposed to get them to perform at an educational level of 80% satisfactory. And that's difficult for some of these kids. People don't understand the depth of the issues that kids today are dealing with, and let alone the emotional and mental health issues as well.
What do you think you need to do here this weekend and moving on to establish this Bill of Rights and to get all these benefits and wages that you have needed for a long time. If it were up to me, I'd pay you back pay for all those years that you weren't paid nearly well enough.
Is my check in the mail?
Yes, it is. It will bounce right off of anything you put it on, but I'll send it if it helps. Make you feel
NEA
better.
President Becky Pringle has a saying, we need all the things that she says.
Yeah.
But in particular, we need living wages and we need benefits that are compensatory with and reflective of the jobs that we do. We have the closest relationships with students because many times we're one-to-one, we're in their classrooms, we're traveling with them to other sections of the school, the cafeteria, the playground, to their classes where they're working on makeup work for high school classes. Mm-hmm. We need to mobilize to gain more momentum for an effort and an effort that we've already begun. And I will tell you, as part of the committee, it has been my honor and one of the most moving things, because every time I talk about the steps that we took to develop the Bill of Rights, I get chill bumps. We reached every corner and place in our state, and we spoke to education support professionals. And those conversations are conversations that I will never forget. We had people crying. We were hugging people. We had people who were so angry they couldn't talk because of what they deal with every day and the lack of respect and the lack of benefits and the lack of pay. And being able to bring all of that together into an education support professionals Bill of Rights has been just the beginning steps. We need to gather the people to bring them along on this fight so our entire state can say, we are education support professionals. We deserve benefits, we deserve living wages, and we deserve the respect that our other educational peers get.
Cindy Porter, I am so glad you are who you are, doing what you're doing, and I really appreciate you talking to me. You're a hero. I see you. I appreciate you, and everybody else that's listening, I think, will as well. I can't thank you enough for talking to me.
Thank you so very much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, now joining me, he is a 19-year bus driver. He's an Army veteran. He's a member of statewide Maryland Education Support Professional Committee. And most importantly, I guess, he's president of local Prince George County Support Staff Union. Martin Diggs, nice to meet you. Thanks for sitting down and talking to me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to meet you as well, Pete.
Tell me about your career with the children, driving them specifically to and from school. Tell me about your job and your career.
It's been a rewarding career. It's been very interesting. It's been fun, and it's been challenging from time to time. But overall, I really enjoy doing this job.
What is so enjoyable about it, and what are the challenges? You like the kids? I would pull the bus over, I think, quite a bit.
Yes, we do love the kids, all of them. That's why we do what
you
we
like
do.
All of the kids?
All of the kids, yes.
Even the one kid?
Even the one kid.
Really, him? That was me.
Those are the ones that we
You're talking to him.
We remember those one kids, and those are the ones later in life, they end up doing something extremely impactful to the community.
Oh, that's interesting that you say that's your answer. I'm sitting here joking around, but you're saying that's the kid who's unique, who's original, who ends up maybe he wasn't a conformist in terms of behavior or anything, and then later in life, he becomes what? A leader?
Exactly.
Huh, interesting. What got you into that? What got you into driving?
Just searching for what it is that I wanted to do in life after coming out of the military.
Right.
I ran a business with my brother, and that wasn't it, but I enjoyed doing it, and it was successful. My own limousine service, that was fun. I enjoyed that. But when it came to dealing with kids at my church, in my community, just on the norm, just naturally, I enjoyed
You like kids, yes.
Exactly.
Do you like adults? Or kids more? Who would you rather work with, like me? Because I like being around kids. I went to some friends recently. I went right over to their kids. I was like, I'd rather hang out with you guys for a little while. My dad was like that too.
I enjoy being around the kids
me
more.
too. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. That sounds like a great job. What's it like being a bus driver? What's that job like? And talk to me a little bit about some of the issues that you have to deal with on a regular basis.
When it comes to making sure that the kids get to and from school safely, that is our main goal. And that's what we focus on every single day. The things that we do to get started in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, getting up when it's cold outside, when it's rainy outside.
Yeah, Maryland weathering is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you're getting that bus ready, also making sure that the bus is working properly. If there's something wrong, you have to get that fixed before you go out. You have to write things up on the bus to make sure that the mechanics prepare the bus correctly so that when you're driving the bus that you feel safe behind the wheels.
I just feel like if I was a bus driver, I think about this a lot, I would constantly be saying, keep them safe. You have a bus load of kids. The amount of pressure, it's not even like being an airplane pilot with commercial. Everybody paid, they're flying, whatever. You have kids, and I'm trusting you with my kids to keep them safe. And it's a lot. That's the place where the most harm can be done in terms of an accident. And that's where it's at. We look at statistics. Isn't that a lot of pressure keeping my kids safe? Everybody's kids safe? All these parents complaining maybe? I don't know.
Yes. We say that we're transporting tomorrow's future. And that's exactly what it is. From anywhere from 1 kid on that bus to 40 kids on the bus. We transport anywhere from 500 to 700 kids daily. So we look at it as we're transporting millions of dollars in bullion of gold on that bus.
That's a good way of looking at it. How's your record?
My record is very good.
Just tell us real quick, what's the worst thing the rest of us do driving our cars near your school bus? You get the big yellow school bus, you get the stop sign, you got the lights, you got that gate that comes out of most different states and but we as drivers make all kinds. What do we do that puts kids in danger the most, would you say? Or what can we do better as just other drivers on the road?
As drivers on the road, really the main thing that the bus drivers need to hear is thank you. Yes, when you see a bus driver, when you see the bus out on the road, they want the bus to hurry up and get out of their way. Don't rush us. We're trying to make sure that the kids get on the bus safely, get across the street safely. We're making sure that they stay seated in their seats. We make sure that Johnny isn't hitting Sally, that they're staying in their seats. We want to get the kids transported as quickly as we can, as safely as we can.
How do you keep the kids safe from each other while you're trying to keep them all safe on the road? How can you possibly
a rapport with them? Oh, you really develop a rapport with them. When they get on the bus in the morning, you greet them with a good morning. When they're getting off in the afternoon, you say, have a good day. And that's sometimes the kids want to talk to us about their day. Hey, this is what I did during the day. If you have on some kind of clothing that they like, they'll start a conversation with you about the shoes that you have on or something that you're doing. And you just slowly start to develop that relationship, even when it comes to the rules. Listen, you're supposed to be at the bus stop when I get here, not running out of your house. You have to also make sure that they abide by those rules, so that we're not waiting, holding up traffic. Yeah. The kids tend to think. They tend to think that the bus is their own personal limo when it's not. The limo is taking all 40 kids, 50 kids.
On behalf of the rest of the parents in America, thank you for waiting for my daughter. She's always late. I'm welcome. So sorry, Martin. I'm sorry. What do the kids call you? Martin, Mr. Diggs, Mr. D. Mm-hmm. Why is it important when I hear that you're fighting for a fair wage, a livable wage? All you're doing is driving in the morning and driving them home. I know it's high pressure, keeping them safe, but that's a part-time job. You're asking for more. You're only working a few hours a day, says some people to you.
Some people. So
I want to let you respond to that person. Let's call them Tony.
Okay, so let's say, Tony, this is the thing. This is a full-time job. It is not part-time. We may have a break during the day, maybe a 4-hour break, but we start anywhere from 5:30 in the morning. We get off the bus about 9:30, and then we start again our evening shift, which starts at about 1:30 and then doesn't end until at least 6 o'clock. But then you got to think about that there are programs that are going on during the middle of the day from 9:30 to 1:30. Field trips, CBIs, programs for the kids that they need to get picked up, and additional learning that they get from whoever rides on the bus with them, the other teachers that ride on the bus with them as well. Then you have activities in the evening. So it's not a part-time job. It is a full-time job that is pretty much taken on by some people who have, this may be they've already retired from one job, and here it is that they're doing another job, or this may be their main source of income, that they're trying to take care of their families. There is, I know you didn't ask this, but I'm going to tell you this. Prince George's County Public School System pays their employees on something that is called a prorating system. It was a system that was created back after World War II. And this is no put down, but there were a lot of women who wanted to keep on getting the same paycheck after paycheck, even if they didn't work. On this prorating system, the way people get paid, they're not making a living wage. We're talking about people who are.
It's antiquated. This is
exactly. It's making less than $30,000 a year.
Wow. for a full-time job, doing, as we described, really hard, high-stress work, which most of us wouldn't last an hour. I would drive that bus one day, and that would be it. Not even one morning. I wouldn't make it to the day. I'd push a kid off. I'd open an emergency gate, and I would say, you have to go. You can no longer ride this bus. I can't imagine how hard it is. What is the importance of unionizing, of organizing? What have you achieved? What do you need to achieve?
Something that you just don't say. There's a lot of people that don't know what a bus driver goes through each and every day in order to keep their health up, in order to keep their CDL. Some of them have sleep apnea. Some of them have other health issues, but they keep themselves up and going to make sure that they can professionally operate that bus.
Oh, yeah, I would need a nap around afternoon, too.
Some of us do take a nap, and there is a lot of extra
I need a nap now, and all I do is talk on a microphone. To stay in focus like that and keeping these kids safe, I need a nap from the stress alone.
The main thing, we just want people to appreciate us. And I don't think there's enough appreciation that goes out. There are some parents that do appreciate their bus drivers. They give them a little thank you card. They give them a gift card. They give them a water bottle. They give them just a thank you.
Water bottle?
A water bottle is enough.
Oh,
that's enough thank you. That we get that. We sometimes don't get enough from the school system.
Right.
We just do your job. And
how's it going organizing and getting people motivated to try to get those rights and those wages?
It's going very well. These past couple of years is going very well. We recently have a new superintendent, and there's some things that they said that they wanted to decrease in the budget, but we need people to bring more awareness around this ESP Bill of Rights and some of the things that they're asking within the Bill of Rights. And the main thing is a living wage. So organizing, having our members come out, wearing the T-shirts, talking to your family members. If you have connection with other council members or people who are change makers or are sitting at the table in order to make decisions, in order to help make decisions to make change, we need to bring awareness to them.
Representation.
Absolutely.
Mr. D, glad you're on the job. I appreciate you talking to me and give me a whole bunch of insight I didn't have, and I really appreciate you. Thank you. I want to apologize to you, not you specifically, but my bus driver was so good growing up, and we liked him, and he established that respect. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I ever gave back to him. I remember him distinctly yelling at me, and I felt so hurt that I had let him down. So I don't know if I ever got a chance as an adult to apologize to Keith, but I'm telling you, Mr. D, I'm sorry I was such a wise ass on that bus.
Apology accepted.
Thank you. I feel a lot better. Okay, now joining me from Carroll County Public Schools, she was a student classroom assistant, primarily working with special ed in a student autism program for 25 years. Currently, she's a high school security assistant. 2022, guess what? She was the Maryland Education Service Professional of the Year. Co-chair also of the Union of Women's Concern Committee, organizes Women's History Month program, and during the pandemic, she organized a community food pantry for needy students. She also serves as a Bill of Rights year-round union organizer, basically similar to my record, Cherry. Sounds like we have the same exact person.
Oh, sounds good.
Oh, yeah, I did a lot of food pantry organizing for needy students. I didn't.
You learn a lot about their situations, their families, and it's eye-opening to see the life outside of school and then what may be the reasoning why their behaviors are the way.
Oh, that's interesting. As a result of the pandemic and organizing that, you saw families and students in a way you hadn't throughout your career, mostly just in the building. Mostly.
Correct. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Good for you for all of that. Congratulations on a heroic career.
Thank you.
Why did you choose this path? Why did you enter into education, much less special education, autism?
It was not my first choice. I didn't even realize this was what I was meant to do. When my kids became of age to go to school, my daughter had some learning disabilities and needed assistance, and so I quit my job and I started volunteering to be there for her more. And the more I was volunteering, they came to me and said, "Hey, we think you're great and we'd like you to help us out in school." So I got a job, and then because of who I am, my thirst for knowledge, I've learned more and continued to grow and I loved being with the kids and watching. You learn that the little things in life are what's important.
Yeah, I'm sure. Did you feel during this 25 years, did you feel during that time that you were underappreciated in terms of your wages, in terms of your benefits, in terms of everything else, working in that classroom with that population? Did you feel that way the whole time, or did you?
Yes, definitely. They don't look at you as important, even though your job is one of the most important there is. Not to get off topic, but it relates to the fact that we are not looked at as beneficial as the teachers. We're all educators.
Sure.
But in 2014, I sustained a traumatic brain injury from a student. I was out for 3 years, had to have some surgeries.
Oh my gosh.
Learn to walk, talk
Oh my
again.
gosh.
And believe it or not, in 2017, when I came back to the school system, I wanted to come back. I was ready.
Why? Why would you want to go back to the place that?
I never blamed him because he has no control over who he is and what was going on. And I wanted to come back because I love what I do. I love educating these kids, and I love the fact that you can see them learning and growing. And it was in my heart.
It's so great. I'm so glad that you did, because you're such a special person, and I'm sure a lot of families have realized that over your career. So why are you here then? You are very active. You're very engaged, purpose-driven, clearly, and you have a lot of different roles, but you serve as a Bill of Rights year-round union organizer. You're a leader. What for? What are you trying to accomplish here?
What I'm trying to do is to make those behind me be appreciated, get a living wage, get the respect and the care that they deserve. My fight isn't for me, because by the time I retire, we may not have these in place. My fight is for those who come behind me, and I want them to have what we didn't have, and I want them to be seen and respected, and I want them to be able to make a living doing what they love.
You are here in Maryland, but people listen to this podcast all over the country. What would you say to parents who haven't worked in schools, who certainly don't understand the job of what you do and what you've done, as to how we can do better to appreciate you? What can we as parents of our children in the schools do to show you our respect and appreciation?
Sometimes just a word of encouragement. Just send your kid to school with a little note saying thank you.
That's great. That's a great one. I love it.
It's so easy to do, to make us feel that we're seen and appreciated. Anything. Teach your kids that we're here to educate, not just in a teaching manner, but we educate everyone in our own ways.
What do you think of those who would be critical of unions in general, teachers' unions, your union? What do you say to them? Why is it important to be organized, to have a union for the work that you guys do as education support professionals?
A union is so important for everyone because they are your voice.
Right.
We do this for the others who are afraid to speak up, and that's what unions are for. We're here to be everyone's voice, your voice, my voice, and we're here to make change. And unions do that. We're able to come together in larger numbers to fight for everyone.
What would you say about, we have a lot of listeners who have sons, daughters on the autism spectrum, some obviously with much more challenges than others. Share with me an experience, or even a child if you want, some memory during your career that I'm sure you have infinite ones and you can't pick. But honestly, I know my mom is a teacher and she's still talking about kids 15 years after she retired.
Yes. One of my favorite stories to share is there was a student in our school who was a severe behavior issue, and his one-to-one and the teacher, and they were all getting injured in his classroom. And one day he was not behaving well, and I walked past, and I said to our principal, I said, I'd love to work with that kid. And the next thing you know, they're calling me in the office asking me, hey, do you want to work with him? I said, absolutely. So I was with him that was kindergarten. I was with him through fourth grade. and from teacher to teacher.
Wow.
And he went from being violently and nonverbal and to speaking in sentences.
Wow.
And he was so smart. He was able to communicate that after all those years. It wasn't just me. It was also the teachers, but it was the ability to work with the teachers and my knowledge of behaviors and how to handle them that really...
Invaluable. That knowledge is invaluable. Oh, congratulations. That's a great story. Congratulations. Thank you very much for sharing that with me, for talking to me, for talking and for representing so many other people like you and for doing what you do. Sharing Maine, you are a hero. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Absolutely.
Okay. I am now talking to Kendra Stevens, and during my talk today, she and I established a rapport, a connection, as if we've known each other for a long time. She kept me in line, corrected me when I tried to say, it was always that one kid. She said, nope, all the kids. It is great to meet you and talk to you. Thank you for that during our talk and for talking to me now.
You are welcome. You are very welcome. As you say, I'm Kendra Stevens. I am here in Maryland due to military. My husband are retired military.
Got it.
And
You and your husband?
24 years. And
did you meet together serving?
We are both originally from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Oh, now with the bragging.
I met him through his brother. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And like I said, we're retired military. We were stationed here in 2004 and left and we came back. And the reason why we came back because we had a house here and then we wanted the kids to make sure they have a good education here. So this is our retired home. And also, and during the military, I worked with kids with special needs and loved it ever since. And I did that in the school system for 18 years.
Wow.
And then when I came to Maryland, a girlfriend of mine said the school system hired because I'm originally an LPN nurse.
Oh. So
she was like, I know you said you was getting burnt out with the nurses. So that's when I signed up with Harford County and been stuck ever since, and this is where I'm going to be.
You say stuck. They're stuck with you, which is a good thing.
Basically,
sounds like a privilege to me getting to know you. What do you do in the schools? What have you been doing?
I am a special ed para, and the reason why I am a para, I can do teacher, but I don't like the paperwork.
Oh, I watched my mom do paperwork till 11 o'clock. She's an elementary school teacher, and I always think about that.
I'm with teachers daily. Every day, they're adding more and more paperwork.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you do the paperwork, I'll handle the kids. That's how we do it.
Tell me about your day-to-day job. You work with who?
I work
with population?
In my class, I am at the only special needs school in Harford County. And when I tell
Should there be more?
Yes.
Do you not have enough?
Yes, we do not have enough. I work with them from 3 years old to 21.
Oh, wow.
They leave us at 21, and I'm in the high school department. I love the high school. Don't get me wrong. I love the littles. 3-year-olds and littles on up because I get to know every child in the school.
Right.
But my favorite is the high school. I need that one-on-one with them. And I have currently in my class 8 students. So we're more like inclusive.
You seem to have this big heart. You seem to be like, I'm over here being judgmental and you're correcting me. What makes you tick? What is your philosophy, your ethos? How do you be patient with the special population? What makes you special? Brag.
Is it. Patience.
Yeah.
Patience.
I don't understand that.
And to tell you that, I seem to have more patience with my kids at school than I would do at home.
That's different. That's not. That's different. They're not your kids.
When I get out there, they are my kids.
Oh, I stand corrected.
That's one thing for me. They are my kids. I'm like, from the time they get off the bus to the time we put them back on the bus when they go home.
Is it true that you love the other kids who are not your own kids more?
So much.
We have your children here with us. Come on in, guys. Mom would like a word.
My son is practicing for the CDL. My daughter just finished college for a business degree.
Oh.
But when they graduated high school, they started subbing at my school and permanently got a job for Harford County.
Oh, wow.
They followed in my footsteps, which was shocker to me. Love it.
Talk to me about why you are here, the Bill of Rights, unions, organizing. Why does it matter? What are the problems that you're trying to fix?
My mouth. I have a big mouth. And I was giving, when I first got to the school, someone handed me a folder and say, we love the way you speak around the school and how you carry yourself. You're now part of the union. I'm like, what's the union? What's the union? And I'm like, okay. And then when I got to the union and started going through the trainings and the PDs and listening to people and knowing that I get to use my voice for bargaining, I'm on the negotiation team. I'm on the advisory team.
Ooh, I would not want to
I'm on the
negotiate against you.
for my local. And no, because I'm like Sherry said, I'm the voice of everyone that cannot speak for themselves. I have a lot of members that are scared to speak out.
Sure.
So they come to me. This is what we need, and how can you find this out? So I'm that voice for them to use it because we need it in a time where right now my county is being underfunded, and it's hurt. It will hurt us because we don't need the cuts. We need everybody to stay. We need the sports program. We need more money, period, for our ESPs.
But you're just a part-time babysitter. Why do you deserve all these?
That's what they call us, a glorified babysitter.
Yeah.
And, hey.
What would you say to them? Who said that?
I'll be that babysitter because I know one thing, your kid is getting what they need, especially with education. We deal with the medically fragile and the severe behavior. And I'm always the one that could be one-on-one with the behavior. If I know I can be that person, their comfort zone, which I know I am, we have the principals, we have the behavior specialists. But if I'm like passing down the hallway and I see it, I have to interject.
Yeah.
I have to be the one to be like, okay, let's see what we need. Let's try something else. Let's go this way. Let's do this. And that is me. And that's something I deal with on a daily basis. Going in the morning, coming home. I'm back at it the next day.
About how many hours do you put in?
We are 7.5.
Every day?
5 days a week. Yes, sir.
That's full time.
Yep. And after that, I'm doing my
but
union stuff.
But even if it weren't full time, like I think if you do 7 hours of work in an office doing some company or something, doing Excel spreadsheet, you sit in a computer. I understand that you can, but and partly maybe why you do what you do, but the work that you do, 7.5 hours that'd be 100 hours for me doing that work. Most people can't do what you do, and the amount of work that you do and the patience that you have to have for 1 hour, I would hurt a kid right away. And you do this for years and years, and so you deserve to get paid so much more because you are uniquely qualified because of your spirit. You're talking about you bring comfort. You're my comfort. I've only known you for 45 minutes. Let's get out of here.
This is something.
Let's get out of here.
I've traveled all over the world. I've lived all over the world, and this is me.
Yeah.
This is me, and I am, like I said, I don't mind meeting people of all nationality, cultures, everything.
Have you met any Canadians?
Of course.
Not great. They're not great.
Of course. Down under too.
Tell me about a student, a story, an anecdote, whether it's specific or whether it's general if you want, something that's affected you, good, bad, in the middle, anything.
What affected me? Like I say, I was talking by my girlfriend to come work for the county because she was with the county also. And her program is different from my program. She's a CSP. So those are the classroom support that deals with the kids emotionally. In between, right now is elementary and middle school. So when I got to the school system, they put me one-on-one because of my background with medical to work with a child that was having seizures. So I had to get him off the bus.
Yeah.
And he was my shadow all day long. Bathrooms, lunch, and classroom. And when I was told he was hard to work with other parents. So when I got there, they handed me this mat. And it was a mat that I know of as football players run into if their coach is holding it. And I'm like, what is this for?
Oh, like a big pad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to need this with this student. I'm like, oh, I am. I work with behavior, but not like that. My eyes got big.
What?
Okay. So I'm like, okay, all right. So I get in the classroom, big old teddy bear. So I'm like, okay, so working with, and I had to have my station was next to his desk, and he was nonverbal. So during the days, I got everything trained. It was like, well, this is what you're going to do with him and everything, for his bathroom and everything. Not Miss Kendra. No. I felt him out the first 2 weeks. You can do this. When he was so like a baby to where he was being catered to at school and at home. No, you can do this. And he would look at me like, okay. And he did it. His mom came for learn with me where the parents come in, and she wanted to know what I did and can I move with her? I'm like, no, he can do it. Just give it to him.
You're limiting him.
Yeah. Yes. And I did that, and that mat, Now, we did have the mat. I had the mat station in the classroom that we would travel to because of seizures, but we didn't carry that mat around. I didn't need that for behaviors. No.
That's wonderful.
No.
Ms. Kendra, that is a wonderful story. I so thank you for sharing it with me, for being who you are, for talking to me. This is really enlightening to hear your story today. I so appreciate you, and you are my anchor in the audience, too, my focal point.
I wish I could travel around with you.
I do, too. Thank you very much. I'll give you a shield and a helmet. Yeah, I don't know what you're going to do with it, but you're just my Captain America is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you.
Okay, last but certainly not least, she is from Wicomico County here in Maryland. Of course, Wicomico County Public Schools. She has had a 35-year career as an educator, special education assistant, instructional assistant at Mardella Middle and High School. Second job as a student tutor, pays more per hour than her full-time support staff job, which is a travesty. She has created youth programs such as an area Girl Scout troop, a double Dutch team, social etiquette group, and Black History celebrations in her community. She serves as a union summer Bill of Rights organizer. Last year, she knocked on 600 doors to get more people involved in the union as education support professionals. What an honor it is to talk to Sharon Gross Howard for the first time. And I hear everybody talks about you already. Your reputation precedes you. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Peter. Let
me just have you hold that up a little closer. There you go. So talk to me about when you got started. Can you go back 35 years and tell me why you chose this path?
Yes. I got married and had kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really concerned about who was going to take care of my children. So I lived in Ohio, was transferring to Maryland, and heard some things about Maryland schools that I wasn't very happy about. Okay. But I thought about it, and I kept saying, how do I keep my children safe? How can I get them a great education? And I heard, if you want your children safe, you're going to have to keep other children safe. So that's where it all started.
That's interesting. Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of us take safety for granted.
Yeah.
Security in schools. So when you say that's what I got started, what did you do?
Actually, I started going to the school with my children and volunteering. And as I volunteered, I met other like-minded parents, and we really worked together in building a coalition to work with all children in the school and in the community. So that's what I did. I jumped on board.
And then I guess they probably saw your appreciation, talent, interest. Did they recruit you and said, you should work here, not just volunteer here?
Because I was at the elementary school where my children started in Prince George's County, I was there just about every day. And being there every day, you get involved. And you get to know the teachers. You get to know the administrators, and you get to know other parents.
Yeah.
And we started coming together and thinking about what is it that we can do to help our teachers and to help our parents.
You worked in special ed?
Yes.
Now. Why? Why that? That sounds harder.
Well, let's see. How did that start? I've always worked with children, and it just seems as though these particular children were just very bright. They're really very brilliant. They are determined to do the best that they can because they know that they have a learning disability, so they work hard to overcome that disability and to be just as good as any other student in the classroom. And I feel that what these particular children needed were confidence to build their self-esteem. And once they were able to feel very confident about themselves and what they were doing, then they were succeeding.
Very impressive. I like that. You just taught me something. What is it that you would say to people listening that don't understand what the problem here is in terms of benefits, wages, dignity, opportunity, all of it? You're not getting what you deserve. You're putting in a full day, which is a lot more than what a lot of us do because the work itself, each hour could be potentially exhausting and even dangerous, as I've heard. So what do people need to know about the work you're doing and what you're not getting in terms of respect and, more importantly, one might argue, a livable wage?
Pete, that's really interesting that you should ask me that question because we were just talking about this yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And because ESPs, particularly I'm a paraeducator, and I work in a middle high school, So that means my day starts off first thing in working with students, particularly my autistic students, with helping them understand fully the instructions of their assignment. It becomes a little mentally intensive because they learn differently. They process information differently. For I don't want to say necessarily an ordinary student, a student without learning disabilities can follow directions. But we, as the paras, the assistants, we have to really sit down and talk with our special ed autistic student to really help them understand and grasp what it is that they need to do. And because I work in a middle school, high school, we go from one class to another class to another class, so it can become physically intensive. And unlike teachers, and I'm not trying to pit teachers.
No, you're differentiating.
Yeah, just a little. They get an hour planning time. We get a 15-minute break and a 30-minute lunch break. It really doesn't allow us any time to really decompress.
And you need it.
More so than anything.
So that's one of the things that you're fighting for is a little bit more of a break, even.
A little more of a break.
Wow.
Even. Yeah.
How important is organizing and getting people to join the union? What does it mean? What does it achieve? What have you seen over your time period?
I just came off of the negotiating team in Wicomico County. I thought it was very interesting because I have always been under the impression that we are all for this meeting the same goal, and that is to help our teachers and, help our students with a good education, assist our teachers in providing a good education for our students, and admin to say, yes, whatever you need to make our students successful, we are here to support you. That's not always the case. That is not always the case. It's somewhat of a battle going back and forth. No, this is what you say you need, but this is what we're only going to give you. And that's not fair. It just does a thing to morale.
Sure.
But because of our passion for our students and our teachers and our school, we go forth each and every day, all day long, to do the best that we can for them. And hopefully when we come back to the negotiating team next year, hopefully things will change.
Representation at the table is everything.
It's everything.
Someone like you, with your career, with your intellect and passion and understanding and empathy, being at the table is, I'm guessing, a game changer. Even if it doesn't change the game today, it affects the game, if not tomorrow. Is that right?
It really does. Yes, sir, it really does.
Anything else you want people to know about the work that you and your colleagues do and the mission that you're on in this Bill of Rights?
I'm going to say pertaining to our students, pertaining to our children. Because I'm in a middle school, high school, and our children are at a certain age, they're really heavily influenced with social media, our society. But I think one thing that our students need to know in their development right now is if you see a student have a special talent or a gift, encourage them, motivate them, and let them know who they are, because that's what they're trying to find out right now.
Yes.
Who they are.
Yes, I'm still trying to find out.
Yes.
No, I hear what you're saying. I think it's so important because I feel like enough people didn't do that for me, and I didn't get great grades, and that made me feel like I wasn't smart. But I just needed a teacher to tell me, this isn't what you're going to do, math. You're going to be this. And eventually I did. But what you're saying, I can relate to just a little bit. That is so important.
Tell a student, tell your children.
Yeah.
I see you have potential in this particular, let's say art, for example, or electronics.
Yeah.
Or even mechanical.
Yeah, sure.
Let them know who they are, what potential in them. They will grasp that seed that you can continue to water with encouragement and motivation.
I'm seeing you right now. I am so happy that you are who you are and what you've been doing as long as you have been doing it. What would you say, though, to the critics of people who do what you do, call you glorified babysitters, you're part-time workers, and you're over here trying to advocate for all these benefits and livable wage. What would you say to those people, those parents, those, I don't know, anti-union folks, or people who frankly haven't walked a day in your shoes is what I would argue. But what would you say?
I would say to the anti-union folks, you have to understand the history of our unions. I started off, I guess, what's his name? Asa Philip Randolph. The Brotherhood of Railroad Car Porters.
Looking them up right now, yeah.
Okay, yes.
American Labor Unionist, Civil Rights Activist, Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters.
Yes, Sleeping Car Porters.
The first successful African-American-led labor union. Okay, go ahead.
So starting there, and then I usually listen to these 2-minute time in history for unions. And unions brought about the 5-day work week, the 5-day work week, the 40-hour, but which is now down to 35 hours work week. Our unions coming together collectively with the same issues, the same purposes, really help our society as it is today. And I think being a union member, it brings about resilience to our country. It really does, because when those negotiating terms don't go through, we get right back up and we say, come on now.
Yeah.
Collectively, we can do this together.
It sounds like you understand, you mentioned Asa Randolph, the shoulders that you stand on, and others will stand on yours someday. But what I haven't asked in the hour I've been talking to your colleagues is about race. And he was, of course, a civil rights leader. You have organized black folks and advocated for people of color in all different ways. What do you want people to know about what people of color, what black folks in your county or in your state are dealing with and having to overcome? The way I put it, and we could talk about this obviously for hours, it seemed like we were headed in the right direction for years, and it feels like now we're taking steps backwards. And I don't know how you would frame it, but given your long career and perspective when it comes to whether it be race relations or advocacy for people of color in schools or students, probably even most importantly, anything you would say about where we are at today and what you've seen?
Well, what I'll say about where we are at today, based on where we came from, is when it comes to African American people of color and this great country that we live in, I have to say, based on the way society had been in the past, that we just want to be included. We just want to show that we can do the work. We want to be the best that we can be. We know what it's like to be discriminated against. So we wouldn't set out to do the same against others. It's not a good thing. Our society right now, with the multicultural diversity that we have, when you bring all types of ideas together, when you bring all types of commonality that we all have together,
humanity,
we can all come together collectively and address the issues that are affecting us today. African Americans and people of color, they saw what was required to be a citizen here in this country. And they strive to get their education. They strive to go to work to do the best job that they can do. And that's what makes us the country that we are.
Sure thing.
Yeah, that's why everybody wants to come here to America, to the United States, because they know that they have a fair deal here. They can get a great education here, that they will be accepted here.
So get out of the way.
Yeah, get out of the way. We're going to do this.
Get out of the way.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you talking to me. You're a special kind of human being, and you've had a wonderful career and contributed to so many children's and families' lives. It's a real honor to talk to you, Sharon. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work. Well, there you go, everybody. How about it? Go check it out right now. Go support them and support your local teachers union, your national teachers union, AFT, NEA, and, of course, MarylandEducators.org. And all of the education support professionals in your district. I am so grateful and thankful to everybody who talked to me, Sean Mckillop, for inviting me and being a member of our community. I hope to talk to you tonight at our Hangout. It is Thursday, so I hope to see you there. And if you're not already a subscriber, you are definitely missing out on this amazing community. Go to patreon.com/PDominic right now to support this ad-free show. I cannot do it without your support. That's it. That's all. Emmy Award-winning John Carroll writes our music. Go support him, johncarroll.org, taking us out as he does every day.
Sunlight, you gotta stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You gotta stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. Stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw the land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand